welcome back, everybody, to day 2 with Jennifer Alleva, CPA extraordinaire. But more importantly, our friend is the CEO of Your Part-Time Controller. We are thrilled to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back 2 days in a row.
I know. It's really fun. You know, yesterday was like the year in review. Let's face it, everybody, 2024, we're wrapping it up. And so what do? We try and do this every year with Jennifer and her team, and that is do this wrap up for the year. But then more importantly, I think, Jennifer, and I'd love to get your opinion, I think it's actually more important to look ahead and what's going to go on in 2025. You think so?
I do. I think planning, thinking about the future, setting goals for the future is always super important. And obviously, you know, looking back on where we were and how we did for a particular time, also important, but that future forward is always something I focus on.
Well, I'm thrilled that you're here to talk to us about this. I mean, yesterday you witnessed to us that you and your own team, and this was company-wide, that you invested time, thought, action, and deed in a strategic plan, 5 years. And I think that that's just kind of rolls into what we're talking about. And so I'm really excited to learn from you again and find out. I already learned something new in the green room, that people in the East, when they're going to the beach, say they're going down shore, right?
And that's mainly Philadelphia. I don't know if it's the whole East Coast, but in Philadelphia, we say we're going down the Jersey Shore.
Down the Jersey Shore. Well, let's go down the Jersey Shore with our presenting sponsors, because we would love to go to the beach with all of these folks. They're really fun. And they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraisers Friday, Your Part-Time Controller, where Jennifer joins us from, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. And by joining us, I'll throw my name in there. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I have this wonderful group of co-hosts. They come from all over the country. They all work in the nonprofit sector, but they do very different things. And so I hope you've been able to get to meet them and really gain from their wisdom. Okay, Jennifer, 21 years with Your Part-Time Controller. Did I get that right?
21 years, that is correct.
Amazing. I told the story before. I'll tell it again. We first met you at the dawn of the nonprofit show. It was right at the dawn of COVID, when there was federal response. And there were times when you literally joined us with your cell phone and you reported live what Congress was voting on and the things that were directly impacting the nonprofit sector. It was crazy.
It was a crazy time, and we're going to talk about our future today. And I have some breaking news today as well.
Okay, well, see, you're the woman. You're the woman. Well, let's get into it, because there is a lot of things going on, and let's talk about the reality of management in uncertainty. We've gone through COVID. We've gone through civil unrest. We've gone through civic unrest. We have dealt with a contentious general election, contentious elections within our own communities. But I don't want to say that's behind us, but we kind of know where we're going, right? Is that fair to say?
We know where we're going, but there's still some uncertainty about the next administration and the law changes that we might see and how it will affect nonprofits, for sure. We don't have real insight as to how the next administration will help or hinder the nonprofit sector. And then just today, we talk about world turmoil. You know, just late breaking is that Russia is changing their nuclear policy about how they're going to react to any U.S. missiles attacking them from Ukraine. And that's super scary. It, you know, makes me want to crawl up in a ball sometimes and just, you know, disengage from the world. But we can't do that as nonprofit leaders. We've managed through difficult times in the past, and we will get through these difficult times together in the future. And I think the most important thing for nonprofits to remember to manage through uncertain times is to focus on your purpose and mission. define what it is that you really want to accomplish. Focus on what matters most, the missions of your nonprofits, the people that you serve, the people that are in your organization, and collectively, we will get through these uncertain times together. I spoke yesterday, as you mentioned, about our 5-year strategic planning process at YPTC, and it was so great. And it really helped us set a North Star for our organization. And again, I highly recommend all organizations go through that process every few years to update their strategic plan, but also have an annual budget.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Really important tool.
I think you're right. I want to jump back to leadership, because I think a lot of times, and maybe this is old school, values or thinking, as my mother would say, stinking thinking. But I feel like in the nonprofit finance and accounting world, we are seeing a new trend and a new opportunity for management leadership. It's not just hiring the bean counters to fix up the books and get that off the plate, right? We're pulling people in this consultative way, thought leadership, helping us do strategic thinking management, forward thinking. And I would love to get your opinion about that. Is that just something that I'm observing, or are you, as a leader of an accounting finance organization, seeing that too?
Well, I will tell you how we always hire. We hire experienced, knowledgeable professionals and let them do their thing in any part of our business, particularly client service, working directly with executive directors and having that independence to work on their own and solve those executive directors' problems. But I would say how it relates to the nonprofit community is similar. Hire experienced individuals and trust them. Trust them that they're going to do their job that they have done for many, many years and proven themselves to do. Obviously, there's some new hires that you have, and you're going to train and develop them well. I think that's also so important. Treat all of your staff members as leaders and continue to develop them and such. That's really where we focus on that leadership development. On, people say develop soft skills. I say they're power skills. Develop those power skills for everybody in your organization. So important to do.
I love that you said that, because we're going to jump into this even further in just a moment, talking about staff building and retention and the crisis that so many sectors are facing with labor. And there are a lot of things which, like I said, we'll jump into that. But before we do, I want to talk about something that it sends the shivers up and down the spines of many a nonprofit leader, and that's the issue of tax law changes, because that's another trend that we should be looking at. I love this graphic. It's a compass, but when you look at it, instead of north, south, east, west, it says YPTC, which I think is fabulous. And when we look at, we start from that point where we understand that the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, is the one that is the arbiter of releasing 501c status and letters of determination. And then we think, oh, holy moly, there could be some tax law changes and implications. How do we start to look at that? And how should we look at that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not a tax expert, so I just want to disclaim that we don't do taxes. But there are so many tax laws that do affect the nonprofit sector that we have to keep an eye on about the changes that might be coming down the pike. There's the 1969 law, that tax law that governs foundations and the amount that foundations are required to pay out annually. Some experts think that Congress might impose new regulations on foundations next year when the expiring tax cuts happen, and re-spark the examination of the code and as it relates to foundations. The taxation on charitable gifts, about only 1 in 10 taxpayers itemize their taxes and are able to take a itemized deduction for any kind of donation or charitable gift. This is definitely a related to the decline in individual donations over the last few years. And it's really a bipartisan concern that, we're not giving as much to charity as individuals are not giving as much to charity as they have in the past. And I think Congress is thinking about looking into that. During COVID, the tax law changed a little bit where you could take an itemized deduction for a charitable donation, even if you were taking the standard deduction. Hopefully that will come into play in the next few years, and we will increase the itemized deduction availability for charitable contributions. That's a huge thing for nonprofits and something that many nonprofit groups are advocating for. The third thing we have to look out for is the donor advised funds. Not a lot is being spent out of donor advised funds, and Congress is looking into that and saying, hey, there's a lot of assets being held up in these quasi foundations, if you will, and you're not required to pay out significant amounts each year. And what happens is, now we're holding back on these contributions. The individual who puts their money into these donor advised funds gets a huge tax reduction and a huge tax deduction. But what's the point if you're not giving that out to charity on a regular basis?
Right. I think that's one of the most interesting things going forward, because it's such a mystery to so many people. Mitch Stein, one of our co-hosts, is really involved in that part of the sector, and every month it seems like he's reporting back out to us about this explosion of DAFs. I mean, you can literally be a school teacher on a minimal salary and have your own DAF. It's not for the, as we used to say, the rich and famous, right? I mean, this is an instrument that is growing, and it is different. It doesn't allow you to do certain things, but it allows you to do other things. And I think that's going to be something that gets redefined. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the overall purpose is like, hey, let's give to charities and use this as a vehicle, a new and different way, which I love. But also we want to balance that with the giving part, the deduction and the giving part. So, so I wanted to give a shout out to the National Council of Nonprofits. They did a webinar that you can get on November 12th that touches upon a lot of these topics. So if you want to learn more, that's a great place to go.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of those huge things. And I think it's, again, stay tuned, because there's a lot here. There's a lot to be evaluating. And we talk about this so much with this transference of wealth that we are in, which is a demographic thing. It's the baby boomers are passing away, moving their estates to their children or heirs. And there's a lot here to think about. There's a lot of money, a lot of assets, changing hands. And so, as a sector, we need to be prepared for that, but also as a society. And this is impacting us across the board. And it's a huge discussion. Something that leads into this demographic shift. We talk about the silver tsunami. We talked about this yesterday. CFOs and finance teams that are led by people, they're like, I need to retire. People power and talent management. That's one of your big things that you're advising us that we should be watching in 2025.
Oh, absolutely. I think, we talked about the staffing shortages all throughout the nation, specifically in the nonprofit sector yesterday. And how do you attract and retain your staff is a really important thing you should be looking at in 2025. And I will focus on, and I mentioned it a little bit before, training and development. It's super important that we don't cut budgets on training and development, because that's something that the nonprofit sector can truly offer to their staff. And they can there's so many resources out there that they could call upon to build up their staff and without a lot of money, use foundations and other advocacy groups that offer training and capacity building to send your staff to learn and develop them into leaders. Also, tech training. Make sure that the staff has the tools that they need to do well in the new technology world. And as we talked about yesterday, it's changing constantly. I think one of the, I talked a little bit earlier about power skills and the importance of that. One of the topics, or several of the topics we just trained our whole staff on in our last in-person staff meetings a few weeks ago, was having a growth mindset, focusing on mindfulness, making sure that you thought about your emotional intelligence. And this will help, and we believe it will help our staff, and hopefully it will help nonprofit leaders and their staff manage through change and having adaptability through change. And I think that's an important thing to focus on this year as we continue to have all of these changes coming at us constantly.
Okay, so let's dig down a little bit. Can you give me an example of what that growth mindset might look like within your own teams and in your own individuals? I mean, you're dealing with almost 800 employees. They're scattered throughout the country. They're dealing with a lot of different nonprofits, that, I mean, let's face it, the sector is stressed out. The sector is involved in trauma. How do you talk about this with your team?
Yeah. I think that the top thing as it relates to having a growth mindset is being flexible and open to change. It's hard to teach that, but it's important to notice that and to say, hey, this is a big deal. It is, you're going to always change, and you're going to have to focus and think about being open to making that change. And that also has to do with technological changes, ways we might deliver our client service. So being open to change and not saying, we're going to do the same thing that we've always done. And that's, listen, our accountants, they're all awesome, open-minded, but I would say I will put myself in that group. We're type A personalities. We like the way that we do things. And I also, it's just human nature. Just talking about it and identifying that this could be a concern is important. And I think it's an important topic today because we're talking about what changes are coming down the pike in 2025.
Right. So are you telling me that I need to take down that poster in my office that says, "Suck it up, Buttercup"?
Listen, there are some days that you just have to suck it up, Julia. You do. You just have to, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be challenging days, and you're going to have, this mindful way, this intentional way of getting through those challenges, and having some training like that, and knowing that you have a support team around you that you can call upon on those very challenging days like we do is super important. So I would say also, building your network, building your community of when you are going to have those challenging days will really help give you a flexible mindset and have you be more open to change, because, some days you just, like I said before, you just want to curl up, but you can't.
No. Well, and it's such an interesting thing because yesterday we spent so much time on AI, and we're in the middle. We're not even in the middle. We're in the beginning of it. And if we needed a clarion call to flexible thinking, that is it. And I loved what you said yesterday and today, that as we lead, we need to be open to these other things. I mean, that just makes our sector stronger. It makes our work with our clients stronger and our funders. It's really, I love that you brought this up as something to watch in 2025, because I think there's a sense of it, Jennifer, but we're not talking about it and we're not training to it, right? So good for you guys for working at that.
I mean, we could spend all of our training time just on technical topics. How do we prompt AI? How do we use AI ethically? How do we automate various processes. We could spend all of our time doing that, but like YPTC, nonprofits are a human-centric business. It's all about relationship building.
Yeah.
Donors don't necessarily want to talk to a chatbot on your website. They would like to speak to a human. And I think there's really an important balance to ensure you have at an organization, that you're using technology wisely, making your work efficient, but also not losing touch with the human side of the work that we do. And as I mentioned before, it's that, what is our mission? How are we treating our people that we're serving? How are we treating the people on our staff and our donors?
Right. I love that you started with that. I think that's just like, it's true wisdom for the ages. And especially as you started this conversation, this has been a phenomenal time of change, and it continues to be. But yet if that is, as you use the phrase, the North Star, and that's where we're looking, that is going to shield us from a lot of these other problems that uncertainty brings, right? Because we can be certain about what our mission is. We can be certain about what our values are. And then when all these other things are coming in, it gives us a way to handle it. Wow, who knew that accountants could be so wise?
We listen, we are human business, and we have to really focus on those skills.
I love it. I love it.
Relationship building. It's hard to teach that. Relationship building, communication, just making people, really want to connect with you.
Yeah. And I think this is just, I give you so much credit, because this is one of those somewhat ephemeral things. We don't talk about it. And sometimes we have differing views. And so good for you all to really be bringing that forward. And I think, Jennifer, as you bring it forward to your team, then your team goes out into our entire sector and leads with this. I mean, it's such a powerful thing to be marching forward on. We don't have a lot of time. I could talk to you all day and night. I know a couple things. Our time is coming up. You're jumping on a plane to go meet with your team in the South. I mean, there's a lot cooking here, but I want to spend our remaining time talking about the State of the Sector survey. We have a QR code on the screen for those of you listening. You can access this through any of our archives, or you can go to YPTC.com. But talk about this survey, and more interestingly enough, the Nonprofit Finance Fund.
Yeah. So Nonprofit Finance Fund, NFF, is a national organization, great partner of your part-time controller, that does financing for organizations, helps them through consulting from a finance perspective, and invests in different nonprofits as well. And I really use that word investment because that's a focus of NFF. They don't do what we do from the accounting perspective, on the books and records and keeping all of that, and then also issuing monthly financial reports and all of that. And that's why NFF and YPTC are great partners. And I'm really excited to announce that NFF is in the process of putting together their tri-annual State of the Nonprofit Sector Survey. And that's going to be coming out in 2025. So they'll be conducting the survey early in the year. And it's to explore how nonprofits are faring in today's changing environment, which is a perfect topic for today. And also how they invest and what they need for long-term sustainability. So launching in January 2025. The survey will be launched in January, and the survey results will be issued in the spring of 2025. So it's going to be, this is their 10th annual survey. So they've been doing this for a while. I'm sure you can go find their previous surveys from 3 years ago and further back. But this survey is going to focus on timely social sector topics such as federal funding, real estate and asset ownership, workforce and staffing, and implications of political events and the election and recent federal court system filings. So I think it'll be very interesting for your audience to hit that QR code and fill out the survey when it comes out. Get part of the, be part of the answers, part of the survey. It's also going to focus on racial equity in nonprofit finance, funding practices, and how post-pandemic shifts has impacted nonprofits' financial health, nonprofits' contributions to community wealth building, investments needed to secure the long-term operational and financial health of nonprofits, and just the well-being of the nonprofit workforce. And we talked a lot about that. So it's the largest of its kind data set, and it's used across the sector to advocate for meaningful actions with philanthropy, government partners, and other community leaders. So we're asking all the nonprofit shows listeners to participate, which will help in providing real authenticity and provide a powerful picture where the nonprofit sector is and what the nonprofits are doing today for their communities. So we're excited.
Yeah. No, I love this because I think that we need our voices to be heard so that we can have stronger dialogue. And especially, as you mentioned, policy changes are afoot, right? So this is even more of a critical time for the nonprofit sector to voice their thoughts and their experiences.
Yeah, we are so excited, YPTC, to be a sponsor of the survey this year. And we're going to actually be putting together all of the data in data visualizations for the actual survey results in the booklet. I guess maybe it's online. But so this is a really cool thing to be part of. And I encourage all of you out there watching to be part of the survey and to check out the results when they come out in the spring of 2025. So look for the survey when it's released in January.
Okay, well, I'll make a commitment to you to support this going forward at the beginning of the year when this opens up, because I love this sort of thing. And I know that you have this rock star group of DataViz folks. I love that you've combined those talents. This is just great news.
Yeah, our tech team is just so great. They help support our client service team that's out there on the front lines with executive directors in producing reports, graphs, charts in the best way possible to tell the story of the organization from a financial perspective. And that's super important. Again, that's an important thing going into 2025 as well, is to remember, to always tell your story in the best way possible. And some of the ways to do that is through, certainly through data, but really combining that data and showing it in a summarized format that's useful and that, anyone can look at and say, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm getting that. Jennifer, it's interesting. As we finish up, we have somebody from YPTC on virtually every month, and they talk about all different things. But one of the arcs that's consistent in when we interview folks is telling the story, doing the storytelling, which we don't think of this being something that comes from finance and accounting and bookkeeping. And every single one of your team members says that, and how do we figure out a way to communicate something that generally just makes people's eyes glaze over? And we have to be thinking about that. And I agree with you for the 2025 year trends. That needs to be a strategic direction that nonprofits take. How do we communicate using DataViz and telling our story in a different way? I think that's just something that those groups that miss that, they miss opportunity.
Yeah. Funders are looking for you to lead them down the path. Why should we invest in your organization? And data visualization, charts, graphs, telling that financial story is a super way to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, you've been a super guest. I just love any time I get with you. I think you're one of the tremendous thought leaders you know, accounting and finance aside, I just think you're one of the tremendous thought leaders in our beloved nonprofit sector. And I'm always grateful when, and I'll call it out, when your team allows me to talk to you. Because you got a lot cooking, sister.
Yeah.
And so it's not always easy to get you on the nonprofit show. And I love the folks that come to us from your team. They're just amazing. But I do love it even more when you're on the show. And so I'm very appreciative that we got 2 days. My team here was very excited, really, really thrilled to have you on with us and to share your wisdom. Well, now you got to go, my friend, because you got a plane to catch.
You have a plane to catch.
You have to get on with your world and your life. We welcome you back. Thank you so much for sharing what occurred this year, what we should be looking at for next year, because this is the time. This is where we are. I mean, things are changing, and if we can get ahead of this or be more thoughtful about it, we'll all be better. Jennifer Alleva, CPA, CEO, more importantly, Chief Executive Officer now of your part-time controller. Check out YPTC.com. Tremendous number of resources available. Whether you're a client or not, they have a tremendous amount of training. You'll see episodes of the nonprofit show and all sorts of white papers and data. It's really a powerful way to get you and your team up to speed on where you should be when it comes to nonprofit finance and accounting. So Jennifer, thank you so much. Hey, we want to make sure we give a shout out to everybody that really allows us to have these conversations. And they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraisers Friday, Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Clear Impact. These are the folks that join us day in and day out, and they really make a difference. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to leave you with my message. I'm directing it to you, my friend. And the message goes like this. Stay well, Jennifer, because you need to do well.